In a magical world where everyone has magical abilities, and even seeing a dragon is commonplace, our protagonist Mash is performing an extraordinary bench press with extreme ease, all while enjoying his profiterole. Mash possesses such immense physical strength that when he tries to open a door he ends up breaking it. The guy can't even control his strength. The two live in a shack in the middle of the countryside, and his grandfather forbids him from going to the city. But upon seeing a promotion for profiteroles, his favorite sweet, he ends up going to the city. The townspeople notice that he has a mark on his face, which should signify that he is someone without magic. Brad Coleman, a very aggressive police officer, is informed that Mash doesn't have a mark and decides to check it out. Arriving there, Mash bumps into a drunk police officer. The more he tries to explain, the more he gets entangled, needing to be saved by his grandfather. As punishment, Regro makes Mash redo his entire morning training. Meanwhile, Brad sends some magical birds to follow the two. Soon after, the police raid his house. When Mash arrives home, Brad is strangling Regro and hits him with several blows to make him hand over Mash. But the old man remembers that since childhood, he was never good at anything and felt like a burden on others' lives, even thinking of taking his own life, until he found Mash, an abandoned baby without a mark. He ends up adopting him, vowing to take care of him forever. At this, Brad threatens to give Regro a final shot, but Mash bursts into the house punching the police officers. Then Brad uses an extremely powerful magic on Mash to humiliate him. But nothing happens. The protagonist deflects the magic with a slap, and with several other powerful shots, Brad tries to defeat him, but Mash keeps batting them away as if playing with balls. Mash decides to use his grandfather's wand and shoots at Brad, breaking his magic. Not even his grandfather can understand how this is possible. Seeing that the guy is too strong, Brad decides to make a deal with him. The deal is as follows: if he agrees, he will leave his family alone. If he doesn't agree, he will continue hunting the two. Basically, he will have to enter a magic school and be the best student, supported by the police officer. And all the prestige and riches Mash gains, they will have to share. The grandfather thinks this is a bad idea, but Mash readily accepts. All he wants is to live in peace, just tranquility, and for his grandfather to be well, right? And I'll tell you, Mash stands out quite a bit in the School of Wizards. The admissions test supervisor is Professor Claude Lutt, a well-known sorcerer. As he glances at the students, he can't believe Mash is doing an exercise in the middle of it all. And on top of that, he stops to read a bodybuilding book in an imaginary chair. The guy gets furious and says that someone like that wouldn't even pass the first test. Then Claude appears using his magic, and everyone is awestruck because he is a very important person. He is a young prodigy who reached 7th place in the ranking and can use several high-level magic. But Mash ends up saying that the fire coming out of him must cause a lot of heat, and the guy gets extremely indignant. The test begins, and Claude uses his magic to create a bunch of benches for everyone to sit on and places tests and quills on the table, all using his own magic. They have to take this test, but there's a detail. There are enchanted moving letters, a very powerful spell by Claude that only the best wizards can decipher. But Mash decides to threaten the letters with his fist, and lo and behold, they obey and align perfectly, and incredibly, he gets all the questions right. In the other tests, he had to levitate a stone, and he does it perfectly. Everyone is amazed. But in reality, he was doing it with his thumb jammed into the stone, making everything look like magic. And he even manages to run on water. But in reality, it wasn't magic. The thing is, he was running very fast. Unable to believe that Mash is still among the selected, Claude conjures a labyrinth full of traps. And they needed to cross this labyrinth in 30 minutes, this labyrinth having many traps. Mash finds this test very easy, but a girl appears asking to ally with him. Her name is Lemon. Instead of helping, she only hinders. Every time she's attacked by creatures that end up delaying the protagonist. Then Mash decides to get rid of her, but she uses a spell to trap him and says she has reasons for him not to go. Against all odds, he breaks free from the spell by brute force and runs off, leaving the girl behind. Then she is left alone, surprised by a sphinx that tells a riddle she can't answer. And because of this, it threatens to kill her. When the creature is about to strike her, to her surprise, Mash appears, punching the creature with great force. Then Mash carries Lemon and manages to break all the walls, crossing the labyrinth in a straight line, even though the labyrinth walls are very thick. The students don't like how he solved the problem and ask for his expulsion for cheating. But Lemon says that she made a deal with Professor Claude in which he asked for help to make Mash fail. Then the professor gets annoyed and fails both of them and even threatens to challenge them to a duel. But Mash appears in front of him, breaking his wand. This guy, yes, has my respect. Everyone is surprised by this situation, but at this moment Director Alberg appears, taking over the approval test. Both are teleported to a room full of professors and a council. The director asks Mash questions, and he always answers with his truth. Mash doesn't think much, he just does what he thinks is right and that's it. The director asks what he would do if he had to face someone stronger, and with that he transfers the soul of the protagonist's grandfather into a doll and summons a giant creature to kill him. Mash tries to throw some punches, but they are useless, and his hand ends up bleeding. Even so, he doesn't give up. The director understands his persistence as a quality and ends up approving him and returns his grandfather's soul to his normal body. Then Mash's first lesson is to open a padlock with magic. But as always, he opens it by brute force. And with that, the teacher goes crazy. And then we meet a guy named Finn Ames who will be his roommate. First, Finn finds Mash a bit strange, but by talking they start to understand each other. Mash asks some questions and wants to know the rules to become a divine visionary, which is basically the best student can become a high-ranking official of the Magic Bureau. And Mash pulls a profiterole from somewhere and offers it to Finn. and Mash asks Finn for his magic broom because he accidentally picked up a twig, and Finn lets him take his broom. Then in the broom flight class, the teacher explains that they should transfer their magic to the broom and then mount them to fly. Many manage to lift the broom with ease, but Mash can't make the broom go up with magic precisely because he doesn't have magic right. Then he stomps on the ground, making the broom rise to his hand, and a boy says that this is cheating and bets a race with Mash. Whoever loses will be the other's subordinate. The problem is that the boy has been a broom pilot since childhood, so he is quite an experienced guy. But as soon as the teacher releases the flight, Mash throws the broom with all the strength he has, and jumps to catch it in the air at a speed that breaks a record, winning the dispute easily. But the boy who loses the bet is a friend of Lloyd Cavell, who invites Mash to appear in the arena after classes. Then Finn tells Mash that Cavell is a school bully. Everyone is afraid of him for being the son of a high-ranking official of the Magic Bureau. Basically, Cavell can do whatever he wants, and he has always done whatever he wants without any restriction. Then Mash makes some profiteroles and forgets that he had an appointment with Cavell, and the blondie waits for him for hours. The next day in potions class, Cavell appears saying that he knows Mash wants to be a divine visionary, and he can help with his political influence as long as Mash does some services for him. At this, Mash ends up finding his books torn during class, and Cavell's friends were laughing at the situation. They probably tore them. Cavell's friends keep making fun of Mash behind his back, and force Finn to vandalize his books, always increasing the prank. Finn refuses to continue doing this because he believes Mash is his friend, so Cavell hurts him several times to teach him a lesson. While this is happening, Finn apologizes and tearfully reveals what happened. Cavell makes light of his face and invites Mash to meet the vice director. Mash walks up to Cavell and slams his face into the ground, making the kid pay for everything he did. But by chance, the vice director saw what happened and accuses Finn and Mash of assaulting Cavell and threatens that both will be expelled. But Mash retaliates with a knee to his face and buries him up to his neck. The director calls Mash to his office because of the assaults, and the Magic Bureau wants Mash expelled. Although considered an unforgivable act, the director disagrees with the injustice of this world, and believes that Mash can become a divine visionary precisely because he is a person who sacrifices himself for others. And so the director says he will take care of the situation, and tells Mash how to become a divine visionary. He will need to become the #1 in the school by collecting coins, which are also given in activities, and with that, Mash gets away with it. Precisely by defeating Cavell and the director who already had a reputation. Then, as Mash is walking down the hallway, he is invited by a guy named Tom to a kind of Quidditch they have. Mash doesn't accept, but they practically force him to join the Adler House team. The game starts and Mash has no idea how to get off the ground. Tom keeps trying to motivate Mash to play, but without much success. When he decides to return to the match, a crazy guy from the other team injures him on purpose to invalidate the captain. Mash gets so upset about this that he develops a technique. He jumps very high and keeps moving his legs to float in the air. Everyone is shocked by this. He gets the ball and throws it so hard that no opponent can stand in front of it, and he ends up scoring. The ball has so much effect that it returns to his hand. And in a back and forth sequence, he keeps scoring points until he wins the match. And the score is 999x60. You are crazy about this guy, this strength is supernatural, and for this victory he receives a silver coin which brings him closer to becoming a divine visionary. Then Mash becomes famous and everyone wants his attention. While he is in the library with his friends, a blue-haired kid challenges him. This guy is named Lance Crow. He has 2 marks on his face, which means he is very powerful by birth, and he even got a perfect score on the test. He uses a magical vial and traps Finn, Lemon, and Tom, and tells him to go to the Owl Forest to get his friends back. The dispute then takes place in the forest, and Lance tells Mash that he wants to make a bet with him worth 2 silver coins, and Tom is surprised that a student has 2 silver coins since only high-level students could achieve this feat. And he explains that the number of lines on your face indicates a person's magical power. Almost all wizards of this lineage are born with only 1 line, and among 1 in 10,000 a wizard is born with 2 lines who are basically people chosen by magic. Magic duels between students are prohibited, so all this will remain a secret. Lance uses a magic that increases the gravity of an area, which makes it impossible for a common human to move. But since Mash is absurdly strong, he can even pull out the roots of a tree and throw it at Lance, who narrowly dodges it. Then Mash advances towards him with a punch. But Lance once again uses gravity magic, slowing him down significantly. But by chance, Mash ends up hitting a locket with a picture of a girl who is Lance's younger sister. He has memories of her, a very loving girl, and they took care of each other. His sister's name is Anna, and she has a disease that makes her lose her magic. And that within 5 years her magic mark would be completely erased, and with that she would be killed by the laws of this world. Lance wants to become a divine visionary to change this, and that's why he's fighting for Mash's coin. With the intention of putting Mash in a dilemma, Lance throws the vial with the 3 friends inside, and greatly increases gravity, knowing that Mash will try to save them and thus he can attack him and win the combat. But he didn't expect. Mash uses what he calls the power of tendon, and in a violent muscular explosion he manages to grab the vial and return to the battlefield. But he realizes that the vial is fake. Lance would never take innocent lives and it was just a bluff. Before Lance can react, Mash steals his vial and ends the fight. Lance realizes that he is honorable and pays the silver coin as promised. And so once again Mash wins another confrontation. Because of all this, Mash and Finn didn't do their potions homework. For this, it was necessary to calm a mandrake, which is a plant that screams a lot. Lance decided to help the two, teaching Finn a spell that calms the plant. But Mash's mandrake freaks out and he puts it to sleep with a slap. Lance even tries to follow every step of the cooking process, but there's no way Mash can only make profiteroles. Think of a guy who loves this stuff. Then the next class begins in a forest. A noisy red-haired guy arrives and challenges Mash, but he completely ignores this guy, giving attention to Lemon. He doesn't stop saying his own name, which is Barrett, and he thinks he can boss everyone around, and gets very irritated because Mash and his friends ignore his presence. Then the class begins. They need to fight scorpions with bronze coins that grow on their heads, and some of them even have silver coins. Lance and Mash team up, as the silver scorpions are the most dangerous. And both are in a hurry to become divine visionaries. A random guy from the rival house, Silva from Lang House, attacks Mash without much explanation. He just doesn't like him. He is a sick maniac who has assaulted students and teachers several times, but the cabinet believes that his magical power can be useful and doesn't expel him. The two promise to fight and enter a forest. Lance tries to come up with a plan, but Mash ends up getting lost from him. This is because he is a bit clumsy and ends up meeting Dot. They hear a scream and end up finding a young man threatening a girl. Dot hits him with a spell, saving the girl. He tries to hit on her, but he's a bit slow for these things. Then Dot and the girl come up with an idea and she's already trying to seduce him. And also Mash to use a spell to make them fall in love. Dot is already completely smitten with her. Then she tries to enchant Mash, but it doesn't work. He only cares about his profiteroles. The girl says that Silva keeps harassing her, so she enchants the boys to fight for her. Then Silva appears and Dot attacks him with several fireballs. But Silva defends himself with his iron magic and attacks him immediately afterwards. But he ends up hitting a profiterole, and Mash gets upset about it. Dot faces Silva and he makes a deal. If Dot withstands 5 blows from his iron fist, Silva will stop tormenting the girl. And to make it even more interesting, he bets a silver coin. But for this he asks Mash to also accept 5 more blows, but Dot takes all 10 blows alone. The guy is confident. Silva has fun using the blows on Dot, and can't even believe that he will be able to withstand all 10 blows. Dot is very injured and wants to continue fighting but can barely move. And Silva continues attacking. Dot asks Mash to take the girl and run away, but he discovers that she was Silva's ally, and served as bait for him to massacre the guys. And finally Mash gets into the fight. He throws a profiterole into Dot's mouth, tells him to shut up, tells him to come with everything and hit him with all 10 blows and even calls him trash. Meanwhile in the forest, Mash's friends are worried about him, but he has to be careful because some types of wizards are much stronger, especially wizards with 2 lines. And there must certainly be wizards stronger than Mash. Returning to Silva, he doesn't take Mash's provocation seriously and attacks Dot, who is lying on the ground, but Mash tries to punch him. He protects himself with an iron wall. After that he keeps using several shots, until finally Mash manages to retaliate, breaking the iron with punches, hitting several iron blocks until he can punch Silva, who flies far away. The guy flies where Judas lost his boot. The boy even tries to protect himself with some iron walls, but Mash punches him once more. Then Silva can't take it anymore and almost faints. And Mash sits waiting for him to get up for 8 more punches. He's going to have to take it now. After the 3rd punch, a giant scorpion with a star on its forehead interrupts the group. Silva prepares to flee, but Mash hits the scorpion so hard that he throws it far away and rips off its star, which is worth 2 silver coins. Out of pity, which I don't think he should have, Mash forgets the next 7 punches, leaving Silva very relieved. And now Mash has to resolve things with the girl who was trying to enchant them. He gives her a sideways glance. She already trembles at the base, and starts acting to try to deceive them again, but Mash runs behind her, gives her a very cute hug, and uses a German suplex on her to make her stop being silly. And then he tells her not to worry because he treats everyone equally. Woman and man are all the same to him. Then the friends gather in the forest. Now with 5 silver coins, Mash has a gold one. Lance says that in the Lang house, there is a faction that steals silver coins from other students to force who will become the divine visionary, and they will certainly attack Mash if he is alone. Problem is that the protagonist gets lost in the school corridors, and gets into a dilemma about pulling or pushing a door without breaking it. And then in a room that looks more like a bizarre cult, we see Silva at the Myalupus faction meeting. They are disappointed with his defeat, and their leader, as punishment, transforms him into a puppet. And then he addresses the other students who intend to become the divine visionary to cleanse the world of what he considers impure people. Mash ends up interrupting the meeting, breaking down the door. And it's strange that this guy is holding a doll in his hand that he calls his mother. This guy asks Mash why he wants to become a divine visionary and laughs at him, since Mash just wants to live a peaceful life with his family. And after a whole speech in which he believes that superior people should oppress the weaker ones, Mash summarizes that the guy also wants to live in peace with his family, making this guy, who is the leader of the Myalupus, very angry. He sends a puppet to attack Mash, who easily breaks free from it, making the creature return to his Silva. But the leader sends another very strong puppet that steals the gold coin Mash was carrying, and Mash decides to help Silva, taking him to the infirmary, and promises that he will come back to smash the Myalupus. The leader believes that Mash gave up his gold coin, but in its place he finds a button. The fool was deceived. One of the faction members managed to see that Mash used his breath to swap the button and the coin. Then Silva wakes up in the infirmary and sees Mash doing sit-ups at an impressive speed, and doesn't understand why Mash helped him, right? Then the friends gather in the room. They were in Finn and Mash's room, and Dot and Lance were having a disagreement. Lemon arrives, calling them to go outside to see something, and she shows a scale that counts the number of coins of each house. And the Lang house has almost all the gold coins, while Mash's house has only 1 coin. So from the beginning the Lang house has been manipulating the coins, so if it continues like this the divine visionary will be from the Lang house. With this the group decides to disrupt the faction's plans. Due to the aggression against the vice, the director needs to pretend to punish Mash, sending him to clean the owl houses for a week. Alone in the owlery, Lance offers to help, not leaving him alone since the faction might want to steal his gold coin. And he was right all along. 2 very strange guys appear to attack Mash. The guy with the giant shuriken and a bald guy. They are the 6th and 7th in power scale of the Myalupus. The bald guy attacks Mash, drowning him in a spell, and transforms into a shark and jumps into the water with him. The shuriken guy challenges Lance, summoning his shuriken and attacking him several times. Lance even thinks about using his gravity spell, but the memory of his sister doesn't allow him to harm the owls around him. The guy keeps attacking him with the shuriken after recognizing that he is Lance, who is a very important family, and if he defeats him he will be considered much stronger. The guy thinks he is winning the battle, but from the beginning Lance manages to attract the owls into a feed bag. And now that there are no more owls, my friend, he uses his gravity magic, making the boy fall face first to the ground. The shark is hunting Mash, but is surprised when the protagonist hits him, swimming so fast that he looks like a torpedo. Believing to be at an advantage, he tries to use a spell, but Mash punches him to the ground to stop being foolish. Then Lance takes the gold coin from the shark, and a masked guy very suspicious from the Myalupus appears to pick up the 2 fallen ones. He ends up being attacked by Mash, but the masked guy is so fast that he manages to dodge. Avoiding prolonging the fight, he picks up the 2 and leaves, and as he leaves he notices that his mask was hit, being impressed by Mash's speed and strength. All this without using any magic, and he even says that Mash is someone like him, leaving an air of mystery about who this guy is. In the school corridor at night, the masked man fights a guy from the Orca house, but with a sword blow he defeats him, taking his gold coin, and we see a bizarre puppet wandering aimlessly. Lemon informs Lance and Mash that Tom was in the infirmary. Many people temporarily lost their magic and have no memory of what happened. The director could solve it, but he is not at school, and they decide to investigate on their own. And concerned about Mash's safety, Lemon gives him an amulet. Then during the night, Mash, Lance, Dot, and Finn decide to invest and end up finding Lemon in the corridor. Lance notices that she is strange, and notes that she has been transformed into a puppet. The 4 do not contact her and follow her, but they end up reaching a dead end. But Lance casts a spell that reveals a door. However, to open it another spell is needed. Dot tries to use his fireballs, but it is useless. The door doesn't even scratch, it doesn't move. Then Mash picks up a decorative armor and uses it as a lever and forces the door open. He opens it by brute force. They walk through a dark corridor and arrive at an arena. And a red-haired boy from the Lang house who wants to join the Myalupus challenges them in exchange for coins. Dot gets annoyed with the guy because he's handsome. Then the boy says he's ugly, man. That's when he gets really annoyed. The redhead transforms his wand into vine whips, and Dot attacks him with his fireballs, but the vines are so strong that he blocks. Then Dot invokes a magic that surrounds the redhead with landmines, but they are so obvious that the redhead says he won't step on them, right? After all, he's not stupid. Then he attacks with his fireballs, trying to push the redhead, but the vines are so strong that he grabs him and creates several thorns to pierce him. And with that he starts to mock him, saying that he's too ugly, and says that he decides to end everything with the next blow. And Dot gets scared, asking him not to do that. But in fact it was all Dot's plan. He reveals that he didn't want him to step on the landmine, and he forces the explosion of one of the mines, charring the entire vine and managing to get rid of them. With that he finishes, detonating the other mines, definitely defeating the redhead. Basically his magic is a time bomb, and he said it was a mine just to trick the redhead. But the funny thing about the situation is that the redhead, even losing, strikes a pose on the ground. And as they are following the path, they are swallowed by the ground and separated into different rooms. And then Lance will have to face the 3rd in power of the Myalupus, Metal. Dot and Finn come face to face with a couple, crazy girl named Love and a stuck-up guy named Dionysus. And Finn is terrified because both have double lines on their faces, which means they are extremely powerful. Mash, on the other hand, falls alone into a dark place and comes face to face with the masked man, who finally introduces himself as Abyss. He realizes that Mash has no magic and says that he is an equal. But even so, he has a reason to defeat him and draws his sword. Lance is short on ideas and casts a gravity spell on Metal, but he goes underground and returns multiplied into several clones and attacks Lance. His gravity magic dissolves the clones into mud, revealing that none of them were original. This mud can attack him in other ways and traps his feet in the earth, attacking him with cannonballs made of mud. Lance uses magic in a different way and controls gravity to put Metal against the wall, but he ends up cushioning the impact with the mud. Lance throws debris from the destruction at him, but Metal has 2 lines and refuses to be defeated. So he uses a potion that increases his magical power, and summons a giant creature made of mud which attacks Lance, but he manages to dodge, which gives him time to summon several gravitational pillars that pull the creature in several directions, shattering it. Upon realizing that he was truly defeated, Metal enters a crisis because he remembers that his father only cared if he was the best. Lance realizes that they had similar upbringings and delivers a powerful speech, and then leave. Mash, on the other hand, prepares for the fight and starts with a variation of kick, and ends up being stopped by Abyss's sword, and while Mash prepares to attack again, Abyss cuts him without him even realizing it. And he even says that Mash has no chance of winning against him. And then he creates several arrows that come out of him. And basically it seems that he moves through the arrows, being extremely fast and cutting Mash back and forth. Abyss shows Mash Lemon, who is in the apparent process of collection. In less than 30 minutes her magic would be removed from her body, and her mark would disappear, and with that she would not be able to use magic forever. Then he asks what Mash thinks of this situation, since his friend would be without magic just like him. And Mash replies that if that's true he will break his mask. And then Abyss goes after him and hits him again and again, moving through his arrows, and even pierce. Mash keeps defending himself, protecting the most critical parts of his body. But it turns out that Abyss pierces his abdomen. But Mash locks his sword with his abdominal muscles and says that this was his plan from the beginning. And then he manages to hit Abyss a few times, breaking his mask as he had said, and ends up revealing his eye, which temporarily prevents people from using magic, which makes him a despised person in this world of magic. Abyss creates a force field that slows Mash down and increases his own speed, delivering blow after blow to the protagonist. But even so, Mash prepares to punch the ground. Even being extremely slow, when his hand touches the ground it completely splits and breaks the ground. And with that, Mash manages to break his sword, immobilizing his next movements, punching him so hard that he manages to break his magic. Then my friend, after that, Mash manages to land several blows on him, breaking his magic in stages. Abyss even tries to react, but Mash finishes him off with several blows. Abyss rethinks his life, how he was despised by his parents precisely because of this eye of his. His parents even tried to kill him. The only one who had expectations for him was Abel, the leader of the Myalupus. With that, Mash offers his friendship to him and invites him to eat profiterole. Abel is terrified. But before Mash leaves, he says that he will not be able to defeat Abel. Meanwhile, Dot and Finn's fight is about to begin, and Love asks if she is beautiful. And Dot says that he is already in love with Lemon, so nothing will happen. Man, Love gets very angry and sends a tornado towards the two, and Dot retaliates with his fireballs. The girl gets very angry because neither of them is in love with her and attacks them again. This time, Dot uses his fire magic to block her vision, and tries to steal her staff, but it doesn't work. She returns with another tornado and ends up trapping him inside it. Dot has memories of his childhood when his older sister defended him from the bullies he suffered. She said that he needed to assert himself to protect himself and his friends. Love decides to attack Finn, and this enrages Dot. He awakens a birthmark on his forehead, which makes him accumulate a lot of magical power, and when released causes a lot of destruction. Some people are born with this circle on their forehead representing danger, and it activates depending on his mood. And if his emotion reaches a certain point, he can embody the state of the war demon. Now he is so powerful that he creates many fireballs to attack her. But he purposefully deflects his attacks because he doesn't want to hurt a girl and forces her to give up the battle. They are interrupted when a giant stone head appears behind Finn, and Dot appears to defend him, getting injured. Dionysus appears very upset with Love, because he needed to stop the magic he invoked on Mash to petrify him. He believed that she alone could defeat the two and creates several giant stone hands to grab the two, but he is surprised by a sword blow that knocks him down for good. No one understands what is happening, until a divine visionary enters the room. A student from the top floor of the Adler house named Ryan Ames. Half of his hair is blonde and half is black. Dionysus tries to attack him from behind with a giant head. However, Ryan easily cuts it without even moving. After that, he sends hundreds of swords towards Dionysus but misses him on purpose. Ryan approaches and kicks Dionysus again and again to teach him a moral lesson. This about choosing his own destiny. Finn calls Ryan brother, and Ryan says he is looking for people from the Innocent Zero. Then without wanting to, he meets Mash, and ends up seeing that he has no magic, but he feels an absurd oppression coming from him. So without thinking much, he attacks Mash with a big sword. But Mash manages to stop it with his fingers. Then he summons a magic measuring spider to find out if he was the guy he was looking for. The spider cannot detect magic, and with that he is not satisfied and continues attacking Mash. He throws many swords at him, but then when the dust settles, Mash was holding one of his swords, and basically he was batting away the others, which impresses the spider. Ryan introduces himself and recognizes Mash's name. The director talked about. He told him to protect Mash. Then our protagonist finds a door and tries to knock, but the door explodes. Inside, he meets Abel, the leader of Myalupus. Abel asks if he doesn't know how to open the door, but he says he thought about knocking, but this time he decided to break it. Abel is amazed that Mash defeated Abyss, and believes that since he is so superior he should understand his idea of superiority. However, Mash believes that the inferiors should be protected. Meanwhile, Love manages to watch hidden. Abel sends several dolls to attack Mash, which are very hard on the outside and full of acid on the inside. If they fall apart, our protagonist is in trouble. But he manages to use the head of one of them as a bowling ball, destroying all the acid dolls easily. Behind Abel there is equipment that sucks the magic from those he considers weak, and he has been doing this for days, which is why many people are getting sick. This is also where Lemon is now. Then Abel sends clown puppets and Mash manages to knock them down. The protagonist advances to defeat the opponent, but out of nowhere, Mash starts to struggle alone, punching his own face. After that, he strangles his own neck. And this is Abel's magic. He can create magical threads and control people. And out of malice, he sends Mash the Finn puppet he captured earlier. Abel controls it with a giant axe, attacking Mash. who dodges several times so as not to hurt his friend. But Mash was not going to let that go. He cuts the strings of Finn's puppet using a gold coin. Abel gets so irritated by this that he uses his magical threads on Mash, who manages to break free using his brute strength and advances against Abel. When he least expects it, boom, a punch to the face. Then he gets really angry and uses an extremely powerful magic, turning Mash into a puppet, and approaches to steal his coin. But he ends up finding a profiterole, which is enough for Mash to move involuntarily and wake up to punch his face, returning to normal. Abel summons a giant puppet with several heads and hands that send invisible threads to control Mash, and before Abel's speech, Mash shatters the creature's hands and arms with such speed that only Love managed to see him ripping out the threads. Puppet tries to attack Mash, but he punches it with force and destroys it. Then he grabs Abel from behind, finishing him off with a piledriver. After that, Abel is left battered, thinking about his life, about how his mother helped the poorest people, but she ended up being stabbed while feeding needy people. This made him believe that he should eliminate those he considered inferior. Mash considers the battle won and doesn't care about Abel, and asks him to release Lemon. Besides her, there are other captured students including Finn and Dot, and then when everyone is gathered they celebrate, and realize that Lance is not there. Somewhere else, Lance and Ryan meet in a corridor. Ryan realizes that something is wrong, and makes him reveal himself as a member of the criminal organization Innocent Zero. The mission given by the director to Ryan was precisely to find the suspect. The organization financed the Myalupus, but now Abel is no longer useful, and the blondie is there to kill him. Ryan tries to avoid this but is stopped by an assassin who uses cutlery as weapons, and Ryan is worried about Mash, because he is sure that he would not be able to deal with this guy from Innocent Zero. After all, this guy is on the level of a divine visionary. During the friends' celebration, Mash decides to go to the bathroom, just at the moment when the blonde from Innocent Zero knocks down Lemon, Finn and Dot, and advances directly to Abel and humiliates him with several words. Then he uses Abel's hands to make him take his own life, but Mash appears with the celebration profiterole. The blonde doesn't care and continues trying to kill Abel, but Abyss puts himself in the way, being shot instead. Then Mash gives him a tissue that the divine visionary had given him, and with that the blonde from Innocent Zero is quite impressed with Mash. While he was preparing his spell to finish off Abel, Mash threw the stone at his shoulder, making him lose concentration and not make a good attack, and he ends up realizing that Mash is the guy his organization was looking for. But Abyss was pierced and Mash is furious, and he starts stomping that breaks everything in front of him, and even kicks a stone in his direction, which is stopped by him with his hands. Mash says that if the blonde doesn't get out of the way, he will beat him up, precisely because he has to take Abyss to the infirmary, and the blonde says he will give him 30 minutes to save Abyss. Then he summons several energy balls, and Mash punches, destroying all of them. Abel doesn't understand why Abyss sacrificed himself, but Mash can understand and explains his new friend's point of view. Basically, he lived his whole life being despised by everyone, and since Abel welcomed him, he was very happy to be useful at least once in his life. The blonde then starts to increase the blows, and Mash continues destroying, protecting the two from the attacks. But it starts to get very difficult for Mash, and Abel uses his giant puppet to block the blows, giving Mash time to punch the blonde. But he ends up using a magical item, a mirror that absorbs magic and returns it to the user in an even more aggressive way. Everyone believes that this would return Mash's muscular magic. Then he simply punches the mirror, break, and the blonde barely manages to withstand the punch. And then seeing this scene, everyone is astonished by one thing. This attack by Mash was certainly not with magic, and everyone realizes that all the crazy things Mash has done so far were not done with magic. It was all brute force, and people can't believe it. Everyone looks stunned. Then the blonde releases a dimensional magic, from where a giant and strange hand comes out. Finally, he introduces himself as Cell War, and the giant creature takes him away. He says he will return because Mash is who they were looking for. Then Abel takes Abyss to the infirmary and thanks Mash. And Dot, Finn and Lemon, as they realize that Mash has no magic, decided to keep his secret. After all, this could cause a calamity in the magical world. But a student who had turned into a puppet also heard this, and says he will tell everyone. Without much to do, Mash pulls a profiterole from his pocket and eats calmly. Meanwhile, Cell War is talking to someone. He calls this person father, and says he found what had been lost. And after defeating the Myalupus organization and having his lack of magic running around as a rumor, Mash receives his old enemies, Abyss, who has just recovered, and Abel, who makes a point of throwing a party to thank the protagonist and his friends. And during dinner, Abyss tells Mash that the Innocent Zero organization will certainly punish them for their failure, and that Mash is being persecuted, and there is something about him that the organization is interested in. The next day, Mash goes to court to be judged for having concealed his lack of magic. A divine visionary named Riot Grants doesn't care about Mash not having magic, but believes that magic is too invincible to believe in you. And then he proposes a challenge to him. If he can light a candle without touching it, he will be accepted back into school. He takes his wand, touches the stone floor, rubbing it very fast and generating a fire capable of lighting the candle. Thus he realizes that he can simply convince the world that his magic is based on his muscles. And Riot, well, he really likes this idea. Then at that moment, Mash is attacked by a sand shot from one of the 6 divine visionaries who appear to analyze the case. The divine visionaries were invited by the director, precisely to observe the situation that led Mash to hide the information that he had no magic, right? One of these divine visionaries is named Order Metal, and he doesn't like the idea of keeping Mash alive at all. This guy believes that the divine visionaries will be unanimous in upholding the law, and the ideal penalty is to execute Mash. But unexpectedly, the person in charge of the case is possessed by someone from Innocent Zero. They use a magical parasite that feeds on the user's mana. And anyone who tries to remove it, their mana is consumed, becoming the new host. And while the visionaries are there talking nonsense, discussing how to solve the case, Mash goes there and violently pulls out the creature. And as standard procedure, it enters his mouth. And then a dispute for body control begins, but he has no mana, right? So he manages to get rid of the creature, saving the life of his accuser. Ryo thinks this is incredible, but Order wants to follow the law and eliminate our protagonist. And because of this, the two come into conflict, raising their wands at each other. And to stop the fight, Ryan throws a sword between the two. Then they are interrupted by the director, who understands the vision of the visionary, and informs them that even knowing that Mash had no magic, he knows that he has abilities beyond magic. The director makes a direct request to the visionaries to reanalyze Mash's condition. This is well regarded, because the vice director is an old and very recognized visionary in the magical world, like Dumbledore from Harry Potter. To help with this request, the accuser himself, who was saved, agrees that Mash should be killed. But since he proved to be capable of taking care of other people, he postpones the sentence. The visionaries realize that Mash is super important for Innocent Zero's plan, and only for this reason that Order agrees to keep him alive. In addition, he asks him to try to become a divine visionary, otherwise he will be eliminated. After that, Mash's friends gather to walk around the city and take the opportunity to visit a place that sells magic wands. Each of them tests a wand according to their magic, and the seller invites Mash to do the same. During the test, the only wand that reacts to him is very heavy. It had been in the flow of an elven river for 1,000 years. No one could use this wand, right? Because it was heavy as hell. And the seller says that it is very heavy, no one can pull it out of there. Then Mash goes there, picks it up easily and gets it as a gift. The seller gives it to him, right? It was taking up space and no one was going to pick it up anyway. Then days pass and Mash invites his friends to visit his house. Meanwhile, Order makes a point of preventing Mash from passing the test that will happen in a few days. For this, he asks for help from a student named Margaret, who is the winner of school duels of teenage wizards, being only 9 years old. Margaret gets very excited about the idea of having to face someone so strong even without magic, especially someone who defeated Abel, and he mentions that he will be a skilled opponent. Friends then go to visit Mash's grandfather, who is very happy to know that he has friends. He also has a rival and a fiancée. Actually, she's not his fiancée, right? But the girl implies it. This is because when he left there, he had nothing, right? He had no contact with other people, and this was for a long time. And without them knowing, on the trail of his house, Margaret and two henchmen approach. But they are stopped by the divine visionary Ryan, who helped Mash against Myalupus. The two are very skilled wizards, with 2 marks on their faces. Ryan attacks the 3 who fall from their brooms. Only Margaret faces him for a duel. Ryan conjures swords that he controls to attack Margaret, but he reacts with musical notes and traps Ryan in a trap of explosive notes. And to get out of it, he awakens his 3rd mark. At Mash's house, without even knowing about the fight happening outside, Mash's friends are playing a board game, and Mash gets upset because he loses twice and is eliminated. Then he goes out for some air and runs far away, where Finn starts the profiterole alone. But this is a big one, you know. Then he takes a look, notices Ryan's and Margaret's fight. Ryan manages to come to the conclusion that Margaret is there by order of Order. He doesn't confirm this and attacks him, forcing him to react and be exploded. But Ryan conjures the true form of his wand, something almost divine. And with one blow, he defeats Margaret and his henchmen at once. In the last second, the protagonist grabs his cape, pulling him close, breaking his wand and winning the fight. Then Margaret recognizes his defeat, and at that moment a magical pressure sweeps through this entire area. Crack opens in the sky, from which a dragon emerges with a man riding it. This man is Innocent Zero. Along with him, 3 subordinates advance. Cell, who is that blonde who attacked Mash and his friends, a brute and a guy with scissors. Innocent Zero conjures a magic that stops time. And then he teleports to approach Mash. He touches him hopefully because he never imagined he could meet him face to face. That, in his words, Mash is his son. But do you think the director would be stopped by this magic? If you thought so, you were wrong. He interferes and does not allow Innocent Zero to take our protagonist. One of the subordinates tries to face the director, who was not affected by the time-stopping magic. But the old man conjures a large axe without even raising his wand. Innocent Zero asks to stop the fight. He just wants to become immortal and also beautiful and powerful, even if it means taking some lives. Since Mash is his son, he believes it is his right to use him as a tool. But the director refuses to hand him over, even if it costs his life. Then the two enter a combat, invoking their staffs that are national treasures, and awaken more marks on their faces, showing that both are much more powerful than they seem. Innocent Zero invokes a Cyclops to attack anyone who is not Mash, while the director undoes the time-stopping magic of Dot, Lance, Mash, Margaret, and also the divine visionaries Claude and Order. Each of the 6 begins to fight with their personal magic, and Order realizes that the Cyclops are on the level of 2 mark users. In addition, they are numerous. Even if defeated, they keep sprouting. The director and Innocent Zero teleport to an area in the sky. Thus, the two can fight on equal terms without being interrupted. In the arena, Cell builds a tower over the students, conjuring a large weapon for mass attack. To make matters worse, some giant Cyclops appear, apparently much stronger. Margaret realizes that the Cyclops do not want to harm Mash, and tells Mash to try to kill the blonde, right, so he doesn't attack them. The creature is there conjuring a magic that will destroy them. so he has to go there and interrupt. Then Mash goes to the tower, running with several kicks, knocking down the floors and bringing Cell to the ground. Even so, the weapon continues to be conjured unless he is defeated. The blonde gets very excited about the idea of a rematch, but gets angry when he realizes that the protagonist does not remember him from their last battle. The creature doesn't care about him, doesn't even know who he is. On the other side, Dot faces some Cyclops and comes across the baby. Upon checking what is happening, he discovers that it was actually a henchman of Innocent Zero, who returns to his normal form and Dot is attacked and transformed into a baby. In this form, no matter how hard he tries, he cannot use his explosion magic. And to try to save him, he runs to Lance's feet asking for help. Even with his gravity powers, having to protect a friend while fighting Cyclops is a heavy task. And Lance is also transformed into a baby. The two are completely vulnerable to the Cyclops attacks. The henchman appears threatening the lives of the most fragile wizards, but Lance, even as a baby, manages to use gravity magic attacking the henchman. He breaks the magic and makes him and Dot return to normal form. While floating, Innocent Zero reveals himself, showing that he has lost his humanity. The director is disappointed with his old friend. Basically, both were apprentices of Master Adam, considered as powerful as God. Innocent Zero starts the fight using a forbidden spell, and beneath all this, Mash tries to remember Cell but he can't, and he attacks the protagonist with his magical daggers. The blonde remembers that the most Mash could do was avoid the daggers, and increases their power several times. But this time what he did not expect is that Mash manages to survive, running over the daggers, approaching enough to knock Cell down with a punch to the face. And with the opponent down, Mash finally remembers him. Returning to the director's fight, Innocent Zero finishes his forbidden spell. He brings the body of the old Master Adam. One of his henchmen controls the deceased body as if it were a puppet, using Mash's magical power. When the director was younger, he and Master Adam were very close. The Master was a wizard so powerful that he created the magical education system, and he also founded the Magic Bureau, and had a great appreciation for people who had no magic. The director grew up with these ideas, even with society changing some criteria. Now the director needs to face the unconscious body of his master at the height of his power. The henchman is very strong and knows how to use Master Adam's ability, but even with very powerful dark powers, the director manages to dodge them. Then the director divides one side of his enemy's body, sending part of his face and arm to another place in space. He does the same with all energy blast. And finally, he finishes his enemy, sending him to another plane in space. With many years of experience, he managed to overcome his master, and now only Innocent Zero remains as his enemy. In the arena, Mash and Cell are still fighting. The protagonist doesn't understand what his attack is about, but the blonde explains that there is a spell that allows him to sacrifice 6 lives of blood relatives to perfect the perfect body of a recipient. That's why Innocent Zero created 6 children with this purpose, and Mash is just a piece of this puzzle. Cell himself is a clone made as an experiment to serve Innocent Zero, and Mash cuts off the conversation with a punch. Cell releases all the power of his wand, revealing its true form. Several diamond blade discs, able to cut almost anything. The protagonist manages to dodge the discs, but there are always 2 next to Cell that defend him. With his wand released, the weapon he conjures over the arena becomes even more powerful, forming spikes capable of piercing everyone in the place at the same time. Then Mash lets himself be perceived by the discs and flees the arena. Cell is there trying to understand the reason for the escape. But then Mash goes around the school and catches his enemy from behind with the intention of making the discs pass through. But Cell transforms his body into diamond. Mash is attacked by the discs, falling to the ground. Then the blonde goes there to check and realizes that Mash survived with his profiteroles, without knowing that this was a hallucination caused by lack of oxygen in the brain, due to a very well-applied sleeper hold by Mash. Unconscious, his weapon conjuration is undone, and the discs disappear. The divine visionary Ryo and his assistant were flying to the academy. When the assistant is frozen, Ryo perceives the effect of the magic and advances cautiously, arriving at the arena with the defeated Cyclops. As soon as he lands, he finds Claude in order, now winners of so many hours of monsters with Dot, Lance, and Margaret. The 3 visionaries take the opportunity to make a strategy for the next steps during the conversation. Mash offers to go after the director and Innocent Zero. An order is in charge of investigating things in a more bureaucratic way and intends to interrogate Cell. But the blonde is teleported away. Still floating, the director and Innocent Zero fight in a surprising combat. Innocent uses his time blows, while the director uses his space magic. In a carelessness, the director is attacked with a time acceleration magic, and has his left side, face, and arm compromised, almost invalidated. Even at a disadvantage, his ideals would never allow the director to stop fighting for the weakest. So with all his power of someone with 3 marks, he invokes the god Uranus, who inhabits his wand. Within this space, all magic can be sent to any part of space, making it impossible for Innocent Zero to cast spells. The director charges this magic to defeat his enemy. The problem is that Innocent Zero can control time within this space. Even so, the magic does not stop charging. The director continues with determination, and intends to lose his life to defeat his old friend. The director's special magic is so strong that it can generate such a strong glow that it can be seen from several places on the continent. Even with this explosion, somehow, Innocent Zero manages to rewind time and survive. Then he attacks the director and was about to kill him. He only didn't kill him because Mash appears at that moment and goes after him with a punch. Mash can float by moving his feet super fast. Then Innocent Zero tries to take Mash, but they refuse to go. So his father decides to steal the director's magic with a spell that he has been using for a long time, acquiring several types of magic. As soon as the transfer is complete, Innocent attacks Mash with his space powers. But before his father can try anything, Mash uses several blows before Innocent can react. It is afflicted by strong pains caused in his body for not being able to bear the excessive magic contained in him. In this way, the director concludes that his enemy's intention is to use Mash's body to receive the spell that sacrifices the sixth relative. Innocent Zero attacks the director with a spatial magic, but Mash manages to save him at the last second. Then Innocent realizes that he is at a disadvantage and opens a portal in the sky intending to return, and so he leaves. But he uses the body of the Cyclops to unite them into a gigantic monster. The director can no longer stand the combat. He falls from a great height but is saved by Ryo. Meanwhile, Mash runs directly to where the monster is and everyone in the arena is frozen, not understanding what happened. And upon seeing the creature, they panic. Lance, Margaret, and Dot enter the combat with the big monster while the people evacuate. Some protection spells are activated, preventing damage to the creature and sealing the exit doors. Claude believes that there is one more henchman who is activating these spells, and he and Dot went to look for him. And meanwhile, Margaret and Lance fight head-on with the beast. But then unexpectedly the monster stops its attack and begins to be pulled back. This happens even if no magic has been cast. Mash used his great strength to hold the creature, pulling its chain. The students are watching Mash fighting for them, and even those who did not believe that he was unworthy for not having magic begin to acclaim and cheer for him. Then Mash gets very inspired and lifts the monster over his head, spinning and throwing it far away. In the forest, Dot and Claude find a henchman and capture him, but Order appears, crushing him with his sand magic. Order is disappointed with Claude for hitting Mash, and declares that he is not convinced by mere demonstration of force. Then days pass and the story is official. The Divine Visionaries united and face the Innocent Zero clan, confronting them and pushing them away from the academy. And Mash's friends are there on a break at the beach while the director enjoys some sun. He says that Innocent Zero will attack soon, even more powerful, since he can use his personal magic to manipulate time, the dark magic stolen from Master Adam, and now he can also use the space magic stolen from the director. Only Mash will be able to stop this guy, with his unusual ability to use his muscles. In addition, Mash cannot fail the theoretical test, even improvising and passing the practical tests. If he fails the written test, he will be expelled, and breaks the agreement made with the Divine Visionaries and with the police investigator, that guy who lives on his grandfather's heels. Mash's friends decide to help him and study. Even if it doesn't seem like it, even Dot has intellectual ability. And under a lot of pressure, Mash runs away from the library and Lance believes that he doesn't have the courage to face what really scares him. They need to abandon him, but Finn decides to go after him and with some words of encouragement manages to bring his friend back. Mash works very hard, days pass and the test begins. And even with difficulty, the protagonist gets a reasonable score to pass. Problem is that, even with this difficulty overcome, rumors spread. And ordinary citizens are furious to learn that someone without magic is studying at the largest wizard school in the world. And even worse, right, applying for Divine Visionary. Mash tries to defend himself, but Lance believes that the best option is to let them talk, and not show up. So Dot tries to defend Mash, however his words are harsh, leaving people even more uncomfortable. In another attempt, Lemon explains that her beloved is a kind-hearted person, and even without magic he does not deserve to be mistreated, but people throw stones at her. This time Mash cannot hold back and goes to defend her, destroying the thrown stones. One of the citizens conjures an iron cell to capture him, but with his brutal strength, the protagonist easily gets out of there and throws it back. Things only don't get worse because the director himself appears, asking the people to respect the decision. After all, this decision will be made in the Magic Bureau for the selection of the Divine Visionary, buying time to go. And Mash promises the director that he will pass and will change his destiny, even if it is necessary to beat everyone up.